The time for change is now.
If you care about me when I do this,
or when I do this,
you should care about us when we do this.
I won't always be an athlete, but I will forever be a Black woman.
You've had my back here.
Now, have my back here. No one should feel unsafe due to the color of their skin.
All lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Join us in the fight to end systemic racism.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
Black lives matter.
I'm so excited that you've taken time out to tune in to the Ella Johnson Show. I hope that you enjoy the broadcast. I hope you'll laugh. I hope you'll cry. But I hope that you'll be moved by what you hear. Well, my guests are very special to me, and so are you. So I want you to sit back, enjoy the show. What you can become depends on what you can overcome. Yes, I'm so excited about my children's book that's coming out, and I'm looking for some mahogany kids. I'll tell you about that later. And now it's time for the Ella Johnson Show. Hello, everyone. It's time for the Ella Johnson Show. It's Wednesday night. Do I have not the most beautiful guest sitting here before me tonight? We are going to have a wonderful show. If you are watching from YouTube, thank you. Thank you so much. But I need you to do me a favor. I need you to share the broadcast, okay? If you're watching from Facebook, I need you to comment. Share your comments and encourage these ladies that are going to share their stories with you tonight. Now, let's talk about a few things before we just go into the show tonight. Listen, I want everyone to understand that, these domestic violence shows that we're doing on the Ella Johnson Show, there is a reason behind it. You look at this picture. This is my beautiful cousin, Tasha. She was killed December 4th, 2020. She died December 4th as a result of domestic violence because her ex-boyfriend decided that he wanted to take her life. That is when we all were aware that there were some domestic issues going on. So the purpose of these shows is so that it will keep you guys from having to go through that before it's too late. Get a plan, so that you can get out. So these shows are dedicated to her. I also want to dedicate the shows, and Jesse, you didn't know I was going to do this, but I also want to dedicate this show tonight to your sister, Crystal. All right. Because Crystal is no longer with us, and you'll hear about her a little bit later on in the show. But I want to dedicate these shows to them because I know for a fact that if either one of them were here, they would be glad that we're doing this so that we could save them. We wish somebody would have been able to save them, but I wanted to dedicate the show to your beautiful sister, dear. Okay. Also, guys, I want to talk about the petition. I talk about this every week. You know about the petition. We have a petition going. Rhonda Morrison was killed in 1986. You guys remember the movie Just Mercy? Well, that is a story from my hometown. So that murder was never caught because, of course, Johnny D was sent to death row for something he didn't do. So we have opened a new petition. Pete Early, the author of Circumstantial Evidence, is also a part of this with us, as well as all of you who have already signed. So if you have not had the opportunity to sign the petition, please go over and do that, okay? So I think that's everything, but this is what I want you guys to do. Do me a favor right now. If you know someone who is a victim of domestic violence, or you know somebody that's been kind of keeping it secret, you know their secret, I need you to call them up and tell them they have to tune into the Ella Johnson Show. These stories tonight will move you. And the reason we do these shows is so that it will move you to make a difference and to make a change, so that your life can be different. You don't have to suffer anymore. But while you're doing that, I want you guys to take a look at this video. And when we come back, you guys will get to meet these beautiful women that are sitting before us. They are amazing. But watch this video and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into the Ella Johnson Show. We have a phenomenal show planned for you tonight. 3 women, and they're all coming up next. Jessie, Lilo, and Rhonda. You won't believe what these women have gone through, but they survived it, and they're here on the Ella Johnson Show tonight to share their stories. Well, I also have another phenomenal woman, Terry Clausell. She's here because we're going to talk about the Underground Railroad. Don't go anywhere. It's all coming up next right here on the Ella Johnson Show. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, did you guys enjoy the video? How did that make you guys feel when you saw those pictures? I know it had to move you a little bit. I know it moved me being able to see that. But if you are just tuning into the Ella Johnson Show, tonight on the broadcast, we have some women here, Rhonda and Jessie, and they're going to tell their domestic violence stories. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the Underground Railroad. Have you guys checked out Amazon's series, The Underground Railroad? Well, this beautiful Terry Clausell Hannon is a historian, and I am so excited about that. But we're going to have a very healthy discussion about the Underground Railroad. I think it's worth talking about because this series has taken quite a bit of criticism. There's a lot of praises for it, but there's a lot of criticism for it too. So we're going to talk about that. But let me introduce you to all of my guests. First, we have Terry Claude Hannon. She's an educator. She is a training manager for the Department of Homeland Security. She's a certified health coach. I love that. You're hired. I'm telling you, I think a lot of us need that, Terry, for real. She walked out on a bankrupt marriage, guys. And I want her to talk a little bit about that, because some of you that are watching this broadcast, you're going to be able to relate to a lot of things that you're going to hear on this broadcast tonight. Just be real about it, because that's the only way we can heal. All right. She not only discovered who she was, but she discovered whose she was. And because of it, she now has her organization Epitome. So welcome to the Ella Johnson Show, Terry.
Thank you, Ella. I'm so glad to be here and among some amazing ladies.
I know. You're just absolutely gorgeous. I love that picture of you. I saw that on your face. I was like, I got to grab that because, I love rocking the hats. I love it. So welcome, dear, to the show. Then we have Rhonda here. Rhonda is a mom of 4. She's also an author. Listen, you talk about turning your pain into purpose. She's now an author, and she tells her story in her book. I'm going to let you guys, she's going to tell you a little bit more about her story, but she lives in San Antonio, Texas, and she is a domestic violence survivor. Welcome to the show, Rhonda.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's amazing that you guys can all sit here and be all confident and beautiful with all you've been through. That's what I want people to understand. And it's not fake, it's real. Because let me tell you something, that peace that they're displaying, that can't come from nobody but God. Jessie is a mom of 6. I am so honored because I haven't met anyone with as many kids as me, but now I have. So Jessie lives in Alaska, guys. She's going to be relocating to Florida soon. I'm excited. We're going to be buddies when you come to Florida, for real. Seriously. And but welcome. She's a survivor. Her story is going to move you to tears, but she has a story in a story. Her sister actually died as a result of domestic violence. So she's going to share a lot of stuff. And like I said before we went to the break, we are dedicating this show tonight to my cousin Tasha and her sister Crystal. Welcome to the broadcast, Jessie.
Thank you.
She's so soft-spoken. I love it. Well, girl, you might, by the end of this show, you're going to probably be talking as loud as me and as rough as me, because we have a lot to cover, guys. First of all, I want you guys to encourage these women as they tell their stories, because it's not easy to get on here and share your intimate details about what you've been through, but they are putting all of it out there just so it can help someone else. Now, Terry, the series Underground Railroad. First off, what did you think?
I thought it was a very heartfelt depiction of slavery. A lot of times when we see slavery movies, you have a lot of distractions going on in the background. But Barry Jenkins, with the way he conducted his cinematography, it's like you were forced to connect with the characters, because sometimes there were moments where it was just dead silence. And so you were forced to connect with the character and what was going on with the character. So it was deep on so many levels, It touched on sterilizing us as Black people, experimenting on us. But most of all, what I loved about it is showing the heart and determination of just human beings, under the circumstances that slaves were under. They still persevered. They had no excuses. They taught themselves how to read. Mm-hmm. They still connected and loved each other. And I think one of the most profound things that stood out to me about this depiction of this era was how the men in the series, they were all affectionate and loving, and they took care of their families. And you very rarely see Black men depicted like that this day and time. So I don't know if you saw that, but that really stood out to me.
You did a very good job of describing this movie. So for people that didn't watch it, they're going to want to watch it now because of that. review because I agree with you. It was so well done. I was like, I'm gonna watch it again. As hard as it was to watch, I want to watch it again because it was just so, like you said, deep. You connected with the characters. But I want to, before we get into that, because this is on my mind, I want to know, because I want to be able to say the word slavery on this show and nobody is offended. I want to know, when you hear the word slavery, Rhonda, Jesse, Terry, when you hear that, what is the first thing that comes to your mind, Rhonda, when you hear that?
I would say when I hear the word slavery, I think about bondage, like restriction, not being able to be your true self, being in a, a mindset of trying to fit into what I guess the master, the owner would want you to be, not being true to yourself.
What about you, Jesse? What do you think when you hear slavery? What is it? How do you resonate with that word?
Well, I think about people who are being captured or forced into, being someone's personal servant. And I think about the Aleuts here in Alaska who were basically slaves to the government, who were forced to provide fur from the seals without being paid and not being taken back to their homes. So that's what I think of slavery.
I think you guys all gave some very good examples, because I think it's important for us to be able to say the word. Because I have heard some of the stuff I heard, Terry, about this movie was, why are we going back? Why are we always doing these movies about slavery? Let's just get past that. We're bringing up old wounds. Nobody wants to see that. Why do we always have to have these humdrum movies? Why can't we have movies about us making it? And you made a very good point when you said how they came together, and you have to watch it before you judge it. You have to watch it before you judge it, guys, because there's a lot of togetherness in this movie. And let's before we talk about the movie, though, because people think, Terry, that the Underground Railroad is a real railroad. Okay, let's clear that on up right now before we get started, so nobody will be thinking about the movie and putting it in terms of the real history. So let's talk about the real history of the Underground Railroad.
Well, there are a lot of misconceptions about the Underground Railroad. Like you stated, a lot of people think it was an actual Underground Railroad that the slaves came together and built. And actually, the creator of the show, he said that's why he put that in there, because that is the vision he had growing up as a child. And he thought it was so heroic that, the slaves could come together and do that. So that is why he kind of used it in the show, if you will. But it's not. It was just a string of people, if you will, a route of people that worked together to help move slaves silently to free states. Another misconception is that Harriet Tubman started the Underground Railroad. She did not. She actually just reached her freedom via the Underground Railroad. And what was so profound about what she did, and the reason why she's so closely knit to it, is because she helped 300 slaves find freedom. So once she reached freedom, she made 19 trips back to help others become free, even including her family. And I think that's something as a people that we really need to pay attention to, because you talk about, us making it as a people, or even, what we're talking about tonight, domestic violence, people making it out of those situations. Sometimes we go through things for others. So when you become free of whatever situation has you in bondage, are you reaching back to help others? Because, sometimes we go through things so that we are equipped and we can relate and we can know how to reach, people who are going through things. And so those are just some misconceptions that people have about the Underground Railroad. But
it had some opposition, though. What kind of opposition did that operation have?
Well, there was the Fugitive Slave Act. And so you had these slave hunters. And so they were able to go and, lay claim. And, if one of their slaves escaped, these people made money on returning the slaves. But they didn't only return slaves that escaped. They also had been known to bring back free men. You know, they weren't slaves, but they would, you know, just say, you know, these are slaves, and so we're bringing them back. And so it really made it hard for the slaves to find true freedom. You know, and even just like in the show, Cora, the main character, even when she did find free places, you know, in the free states that she ended up in, because I think she went across like 5 states, she never truly felt free.
Right.
There was a scene in the movie where she was in a free like establishment of a lot of people of color, and they were doing well. You know, they had their own homes, and they were just out, you know, fellowshipping, and she took off running because she heard some dogs. And so, you know, she was so traumatized that she never truly was in a free mindset, if you will.
I was gonna say that, because it seemed like throughout the movie, I mean the show, it's like she was never happy. I never really saw her happy. The only time was when she was happy a little bit about that guy, the last guy. Right. She liked him, but she just, I agree with you. She just never. Now, when we go back to Harriet Tubman, I think this is important, because Harriet Tubman did go back and she was helping people get free, but she also ran into some opposition. And I think I remember reading somewhere where she said that the hardest part of that job was trying to rescue people that didn't know they were slaves, or something to that effect.
Right.
And I think that still happens, Rhonda and Jesse, in our everyday lives. We have people that just don't want better. They're just stuck in this mindset of the master mentality. And I see it because listen, when I was watching this, I'm just going to be honest with you. When I was watching this, I saw so many times where I was just like, oh, that's how it is now. Oh, that's how it is now. Because the intimidation in the movie, you remember where the man was being burned?
Yeah.
It's like they made him watch. And that was that way of saying, okay, now try and see what happens. And that's exactly what has happened to us. And when you get those people in positions that just quite won't move, it's because they have that mindset that think that something's going to be taken away from them if they stand up for what they believe in. And this guy obviously he was trying to get away. I think his reason was he was trying to get away, right, Terry, in the movie?
Yes.
Yeah, he was trying to get away, and they brought him back, and they just, I mean, can you imagine that, Jesse? Can you imagine seeing your brother up there hanging like that and being burned?
It's terrifying.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. As someone from your culture, do you hear a lot about this? I'm just curious. Do you hear a lot of talk about slavery, or what do you hear in some of the circles that you've been around when it comes to slavery?
Well, I've heard a lot of the history that you're talking about, and then like mostly with my culture, they're really against, I don't like the term, but they say white people, you know, they say that they're going to come take our children and, you know, our native villages and put them in schools and make them slaves, and they won't come back. And many of them did not come back. They actually died at these boarding schools, and they were abused. And, you know, they come back. If they did come back to the communities, they became abusers themselves.
Right.
So it's just, there's a lot of different things with our culture up here with that.
Now, Rhonda, why do you think that there are a lot of African Americans that why are we so divided on this topic? Why is it that some people, why do you think some people just don't want to talk about slavery, don't want to address it, don't want to say that we have systemic racism, don't want to talk about any of that, just want to put on blinders and act like none of it happened? Why do you think?
I think that a lot of people are just lost, and they just don't want to come to terms that this is how we've been treated. And it goes so back into history of how our mindsets were changed, and how people wanted us to believe that, you know, we have to be against each other and we can't come together, and that if you see one doing better than the other, that you have to, you know, you have to attack, you have to bring them down back to where they belong. And that's kind of sad that we're in that mentality, but we've been trained to be like this for so long. So why try to change it? To some people, it's like, why try to change it now? It's no reason. It makes no sense to change it. It makes no sense to change it because we're never going to be able to come together, because we're always going to be in that mentality of, I have to be better than you, or I have to prove to you that I'm better than you, and that you can't be ahead of me. We can't work together. If we do work together, it's like, oh, well, why are you more successful than I am? Or why can't I be as successful as you are? We can't all just come together as one in the table. And I think it's just the mindset that we've been trained to be in since a long, long time ago. And that goes back to, slavery and being on a plantation. We were brought up to fight each other. We were brought up to be against each other. Like, I hate to use the term, some people would say I would be a house, a house.
No, I was
because
just gonna,
of my complexion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because you would have been in the house. I would have been in the field.
So we were already at war with each other, because
I agree.
They would be looking at me like, oh, you get to tend to master kids. You get to be in the house. What makes you so better? So they've always kept us at that mentality to be at war with each other. So why would we come together? And it's very sad, because we look at, even when it comes to politicians, we look at so many of them that are like on the opposite side, and we're like you're in a powerful position to change, but you don't want change because you're afraid of how much it's going to shake and rattle the cages. But I mean, that's what it's going to take for us to be able to elevate and work together. If we see someone in higher power, vouching for us and standing for us and, saying, hey, we need to change things. It shouldn't take for us to see police brutality every day on the news, or watch, brothers, cousins, uncles, or whoever getting killed by still in the slave mentality, because they still have the upper hand. So, it's just more brought to the front light because we have social media. But it's been happening for so long. But until we realize that we are more powerful as a group and a unity, then we're going to continue to stay in this vicious cycle, and it's sad.
Now, Terry, she mentioned something that's interesting. She said they're going to always have the upper hand. Do you agree with that?
That's a tough question. So I don't know.
I realized as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, that is really a tough question.
I just feel like if we could get just past some struggles, and I think the reason you asked this question earlier, why so many shows about slavery, I think it's because a lot of us do not know our history. And in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you've come from. Mm-hmm. And so I think those are some of the intentions of all of these movies. Like, look at where we've come from as a people. And then on another note, until we all connect as a human race, period, I think that's when the change will come, when everybody, every creed, race, color, we all realize we are all one, and that is my whole purpose for being here tonight, is that we have to understand that as long as there's somebody out there suffering, we're not there yet.
Absolutely.
A lot of work to do.
Amen. Amen. I want to bring out a quote that was early on in the series, and it was, "We can escape slavery, and yet its scars will never fade." Oh, speak on it. Let me read it again. Let me read it again, Holy Ghost. Yeah. We can escape slavery, and yet its scars will never fade. And it's almost like it's a reminder to us. And I think I think reminders are good. Let's say, for example, my arm, you may not, but you see this, it's really dark here. That's a really bad burn I got. Guess what? This is a reminder that I don't need to cook. I mean, maybe that's a little too deep. But what I'm saying is it hurt enough for me. And when I look at this, I'm reminded of what not to do. And I think that slavery has its benefits for our future. I know it's like, oh, that's, but I do, because I think if you understand, like Terry said, if you understand your history, now there's a difference than you just think it's people that were beaten and that's all you got from it. No, it won't help you. But you have to understand everything that happened, how the family was so close knit together. Because all the slave movies I watched, Terry, they're always helping each other with food. If somebody's sick, all the mothers on that row come together to deliver the babies. That's positive. So I think that there's a lot that we can get out of it. Don't knock the movie, guys. I want you to watch it because you have to take it in. If you are one of those kind of people that you're not that deep and you may not get it the first time, maybe you should watch one a week or something. Me, I binged and watched the whole thing. It was that interesting because I like slave movies. I like movies about my race. I like movies about my culture because there's a lot of stuff I don't know. I'm not a historian like Terry over here. She's just smart and beautiful. She knows all this stuff, but there are a lot of people who don't as well. But talking about that, Terry, where do people learn? How do we? I mean, I know you were an educator, but how do people, just normal people, how do they learn this history?
I have one word for that, and that's read. You have to have a I was gonna say you have to have a passion for reading, but no, you don't. Reading is just a non-negotiable.
I agree.
And our parents have to come to the table. And my aunt said this very clearly when she was giving one of her speeches when she was running for office. But we have to hold parents responsible to teach the children. I think this day and time, parents rely so heavily on the teachers educating their children, but that should not be so. Education starts at home, and so we have to educate our kids. We have to make education a priority, and not just educate them so they can go to college, but educate them so they can become entrepreneurs, know how to generate income for themselves. So it just starts with reading, having a passion for knowledge. We have to get the parents, and I'm not speaking on all parents, but I'm just saying,
right.
Or we have to get parents to the place where they are teaching their kids at home. You can't expect your child to come to school and learn everything they need to know about their history. And there are so many other cultures that teaching about their history is so important. And so we as a people, we need to make that important as well. Because in the history books, my dad told me this. He was like, think about the word history, his story. So it could be different forms of the story. So that's why that those generational stories that are passed down, from your great-great-grandmother to your grandmother and so on. And unfortunately, we stopped having those conversations at home because everybody's so busy. We're some people are, trying to earn the income and just to keep things afloat. And we miss out on that piece of spending that time with your kid and, teaching them their history and their culture. And it doesn't have to take a lot. It could be a 10-minute conversation every day.
True.
It could be, hey, here's an article, read this article, just something so that they can learn about their culture. And I think once we understand that and embrace that, I really think we will come together better as a whole.
Now let's talk about some of the stuff that we saw in the movie. I mean, in the series, because there was so much, and we could talk about it all night, but we won't. Yeah. But there's some things that really rubbed me the wrong way that I was like, ugh. And it was the part where Cora she'd escaped to that new place when she had gone through the Underground Railroad, and she's there, she's living and she's looking great and she's dressing and, being comfortable. And then she was snapped right back into reality when she went to visit the doctor. Yeah. And they wanted to give her a tubal ligation. Let's talk about that. What did you think about that part?
I just think that was a way for society to just decrease the number of people of color and to do experimentations on them. They were even doing experiments on the men. So they made it seem pretty and beautiful and attractive.
Yeah.
But there was a price tag attached to that, like so many things in life. You know, we think the pretty and the beautiful and the money and the cars and the
And
house.
we don't ask questions. We just like, really? That's it? That's all I gotta do?
Right.
Yeah. Because she almost fell for it. She almost fell for it. She's like, whoa, wait a minute. And you saw how he was presenting it, like matter of fact. But the part that rubbed me the wrong way, and I think that's what's going on, is they did not want the Black community to grow.
No.
They felt we weren't worth to continue making babies. Like, you're just gonna keep having all these criminals. And I'm like, whoa. And I mean, that was deep, like we said from the beginning. But I don't think we're far from a lot of stuff that was talked about in this show. I'm just gonna be real.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And I think that population one is one of them, because I just, another part. Another part. And you remember when the guy who had done well for himself and Cora was back at the community. Now she's with all the Black people again. And they didn't really like her. They needed to vote because she was a fugitive. Right. And this guy agreed to allow the Caucasian man to come to the meeting because he wanted them to see how they were progressing and how they were getting along so much better without Caucasians. Mm-hmm. And then when they came, you see what happened. They just kind of killed just about everybody in that community. What did you think about his agreement with them to allow them, first of all, to come? How did you feel about that and compare it to where we are now in these days?
I feel like that was another way that kind of looking for validation. That was my perspective on it. When
the guy was looking for validation from the Caucasians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're fully capable, but that's just something that's in most people. We want affirmations and validation from somewhere to prove ourselves, if you will.
Yes. Because we feel like as long as they approve us, we must be good. Yes. But I'm going to go deeper than that, because you remember when I can't remember his name, the dark-skinned guy that left Cora and the one that she kind of liked, when he was explaining to her, he was like, we got the judge, so everything's good. They let us know anytime somebody wants to come here and they're looking for somebody, he lets us know so we can get them out of here.
Right.
And that was very key. That was very key for all of you that are watching this broadcast. That was key because that proved that they're not your friend. You can't really trust. They're at the end of the day, they're going to pick their own. And that's kind of what happened in that scenario, because the judge didn't like it. He questioned the guy. He's like, what would you do this for? He's like, well, it's better. Get rid of some of them anyway. And he didn't fight. Even though these guys have been paying him, giving them wine, doing all these little favors for them to kind of help him out, he still, at the end of the day, chose to go against them. And that part really hurt, because when you think that you can come together, there's always a monkey wrench in there somewhere, Terry. And when I saw that part, I went, see, though my first reaction was, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. Can't trust him, and he meant well, I think, but he really didn't want Cora. How did you feel about the fact that he was just against her being there?
I just think he didn't want trouble, if you will. He didn't want anything to rock the boat. He wanted to maintain the good thing, if you will, that they had going on. So I think he kind of felt threatened by her presence. That's what I got from it. So
yeah, but I mean, he was kind of right. She did kind of bring the trouble there. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna keep it real. I mean, she's the reason they were there. I felt bad for Cora because I know she just wanted to fit in with her people, but she was a fugitive, and I think she was right to kill him. I mean, they were trying to capture her, and she was trying to get away, but nonetheless, she broke the law, and so he was right about that. I want to take Brittany's comment here because we definitely want to take comments from our audience. She says, Also, because of mindset, so many rather stay in the comfort zone. As long as we're getting fed what we need from government and other help, why change what's not broken? That's very good, Brittany. Thank you for your comment. Comfort. I don't think that any type of success happens as long as you're in a comfort zone. I think it begins right after you decide I'm no longer going to be comfortable. And I want to say this to people that are leaders that get discouraged sometimes. I just feel like this is something I want to say to you. You have to understand that when you become a leader, you also become a target. And you have to take that role and ask God for the strength that you need to do it, because we do need leaders, Terry, Rhonda, and Jesse. We are in a position in this country, I don't care who it is, anybody that has a mindset to lead and stick with it. We have a problem with the stick withing part, Terry. We'll get started, right, Rhonda? We'll get started. But as soon as it gets a little uncomfortable, like, oh, wait a minute now. Oh, hey, Ella, I was with you. I was with you till you start saying that Black Lives Matter stuff. Now, I can't roll with that because all lives matter. Of course, we know all lives matter. But like the video said, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. And what we see sometimes is that they don't. But then I had some people, I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit, Terry. I had somebody on my show and she says, okay, Ella, you know, I know it's your show and everything, but I'm going to disagree with you. And I welcome it. I don't want everybody on here to agree with me. I want you to disagree. And she said, we sometimes get so caught up in this Black Lives Matter thing that we forget that we're the ones killing ourselves. Speak on it, Rhonda. What do you say about that? I'm going to let you speak on it too, Terry.
That is so true. I can't even express how true that is, because I guess, I mean, I'm so passionate about it because I see it every day, and I understand where you come from when you say like, oh, we see it every day, or, you know, all lives should matter. Yes, all lives should matter for sure. But Black lives definitely has to be at the forefront, because it's just too much going on where it's just, it's not equal. We're not equal as a whole. So just like Terry was saying, like, yeah, we have to come as one, as a human race. But if we just come together and respect it, or just recognize how unfairly we're being treated as a Black community, then we can be able to make that change. Like everybody's saying, oh, I see it, or I see it, or oh, I get it, but there's no change. It's like,
yeah,
what we really doing here?
So Terry, tell me, I've mentioned some of the things that I remember about the movie. Tell me, about the series. Tell me some pointers that you remember that stick out to you from the show.
I think she's still muted.
You're muted. There she is.
Well, like I said before, one of the most profound things that stood out to me was, you know, how the men were shown in a loving, affectionate way. The relationship between Cora and Caesar, he called her his good luck.
I know, that was so romantic.
It was, yes. And he was very patient and kind.
Yes, he was.
And you saw the Black family as a whole. You know, they had several shots of the fathers, the wives, the children. And that's something that we need to work on as well, as a people. And just the other thing I think that stood out to me is about the quote that you said, yes, we can end slavery, but the scar is still with us. And that is very profound. And that's any time you have any type of trauma, whether it's emotional, physical, mental, you know, the trauma state may end, but the scars are left with you for life. And so we have to learn how to work on loving ourselves and being graceful with ourselves, being patient with ourselves as we heal. Because just because the trauma ends, it doesn't mean it's gone away. Because, you know, I have a lot of friends of a lot of different races and cultures. And I have had that question asked to me, like, why can't y'all just let it go? And I was like, because we are still experiencing the remnants.
Exactly. Absolutely. Very well said.
About years and generations, even the mindset that Rhonda was talking about earlier. Well, it was a guy, Willie Lynch. He went around to every plantation to teach us how to be against each other.
Yes.
Some of us
how to control them.
Some of us have the mindset that, hey, I made it, so you get it. Get it how you get it, or what do they say? Get it how you live it, or whatever. So
I got mine. You better get yours. Yeah.
It's just
and I went country right there. Okay, but that I'm just saying. But no, it's true, and I appreciate what you're saying, Terry, because we have to really. I don't think the conversation should die, and I hope nobody ever tell me to stop talking, because I'm not gonna stop talking about it until it changes. Until we're all created equal, really. Then we can start, because slavery did a number on this country. They got rich. We built this country. The slaves built this country, and nobody wants to acknowledge that. Well, if you won't, we will. I'm just gonna put that out there. So, but I want to move into your story, Rhonda, because I want us to just kind of. I want you guys to go over to Amazon and watch this series. Take one a week if you have to, but watch it and just be encouraged with it. But Rhonda, you are a survivor of domestic violence. You're a beautiful survivor of domestic violence. You have a beautiful personality. I think that when you can talk about all that stuff you've been through, God has truly freed you from it. So I want you to talk to us about what happened to you. First of all, tell us, your abuser. Who was it? Was it your husband?
It was my ex-husband.
Ex-husband. Well, that's good. He's ex. Because if he was still your husband, you probably wouldn't be on this show.
No, I would not.
So tell me how you met him.
Well, I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and we went to middle school and high school together. So I knew him in middle school. I knew him, a little bit in high school. He was a quiet person, sweet, and he was basically caught up in the street life. So he did some time, and when he got out, he kind of reached me on Facebook Messenger after I had got out of a previous relationship and pursued me. When he first did, I was like, I am not talking to you. You just got out of prison. You crazy. Why are you messaging me? So I blew him off for about a month or so, but he was very persistent, so sweet, so charming. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll, entertain the conversation and get to know him. And as we began to talk, things were amazing. He said all the right things, knew all the right words. He was, AKA Casanova, as you would call it, just slewing me over. So we talked on Messenger for a couple of months, and then he moved out to Texas to live with his sister, to change his life and do this whole 360. And it seemed like, that's what he was aiming for. But everything moved really quickly. He got out of prison in December. We started talking probably middle January. He came down to finalize some things so he could move, because he was on parole at the time. Moved to Texas, and he came to visit for a quick visit, and we linked up, and it was love at first sight.
So how did you go from, boy, you better get out of my face, you in prison and you crazy, to all right then? So what happened in between that?
It was him telling me everything I wanted to hear, because I was in a 10-year relationship before, where this guy, he wasn't used to saying I love you. It took a long time for him to say I love you. It took a long time for him to accept my children. So I had this guy that I went to school with that came in, and he was connecting with my kids. He was talking to them. He was interacting. So he was doing everything I wasn't used to getting. So when you're not used to that and you're getting it, and somebody is 100% in it and pounding it, and you're like, I have to jump on it. And also I was in that mentality where I don't fault my family or anybody, but in that mentality of, girl, you a single mother of 4. You should be blessed that somebody wants to, take you and your kids. And that's not the mentality that you should, say to your, someone you love. You should say, hey, you got 4 kids, you deserve X, Y, and Z. You deserve it. You should never settle. So that was one of the things that I didn't realize until after I went through what I went through, and when I went through therapy, was that I settled. In every relationship that I was in, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I settled. So, I was looking at it as everybody was saying, girl, you lucky, you blessed. You got a man that's going to accept you and your 4 kids, instead of saying, Rhonda, that man is blessed to have you and your 4 kids in his life. And
was he working and providing when you guys got together?
Yeah, he was. He was working. He was providing. When the working and the providing stopped was, I would say, after our first year of marriage, after our anniversary. It just seemed like things took a turn for the worse, because I moved to San Antonio, Texas. That year we got married. We got married. He proposed to me in April, and then in May we got married. In July, I moved me and my children up here to Texas. So everything was like a boom, 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 bam. And I was trusting him because I was like, this is someone that I went to school with. This is someone that so many of our classmates vouched for, that he was the one. He was such an amazing person. But you really, truly don't know who a person is and the struggles that they've been through until you actually peel back the layers, and they have to be a man and they have to be held accountable for their actions. So nobody saw that because they saw the glitz and glams and how much he loved me and how high of a pedestal he put me on. And I never knew these were all signs of domestic violence until I went to a domestic violence workshop that I was court ordered to go to through CPS. So, and that took forever. So, I feel like there's not enough reference and help for domestic violence victims, because you don't know. If you're not used to seeing the signs, you don't know. And I was one of those people that would say, that's never going to be me, because my mom was a domestic violence survivor. So I was very stronghold and very determined. So I was that person that said, girl, you crazy.
I know,
but
right?
You get into that situation, you're just like, oh my God, what do you do? Because this was my first marriage. I felt like I can't leave because I'll be looked at as a failure. If I go back home, I'll be looked at as a failure. How did I fail my marriage? How, it was so much.
So tell me the first time you noticed a change with him. What was the first thing he did that you're like, oh, wait a minute now? What was that, oh, wait a minute now moment?
The first thing he did that I should have left was, I remember when I went home, my best friend, I went to South Carolina to visit her because it was her birthday. And my mom was like, you shouldn't go. You just got married. And it was just for a weekend to go. And I went, and he the whole week, he was like, I can't believe you're leaving your husband. Like, how dare you? Long story short, I ended up going out there. He accused me of cheating. He messaged all my friends to let them know that I was a whore, and it was horrible. And of course I was angry when I got back. So when he went to pick me up from the airport, I really didn't have much to say to him. And that infuriated him because, that happened yesterday. Why didn't you get over that? Regardless of how it made you feel, you need to get over that. So he thought that I was going to get off the plane, give him hugs and kisses, and this, that, and the third. So as we got to the car and we were going home, he was like, I knew you was cheating. You're acting different. You're like, I can tell it's somebody else. And he fought me, and I ran out of, he was driving, and he pulled over in this parking lot, in this empty parking lot. And we fought, and I got out the car. I didn't have my cell phone. I didn't have anything. I ran, and I went to an empty daycare and hid behind a bus until I couldn't see him anymore. And when I ran out is when I saw this car come, and I ran out in the middle of nowhere, and I begged it was a young Hispanic kid. And I was like, listen, I will not hurt you. I just need to get someplace safe because my husband just attacked me. Like, I just need help. And he took me to the police department, And I called my mom. I remember calling my mom first. And I got on the phone and I was like, Mom, this happened, blah, blah, blah. And the first thing she said to me is, you shouldn't have gone. And I was like, what? And my whole world like crashed because I was like, I'm telling you that I'm out here. My husband just fought me. And the first thing you could say is, you shouldn't have gone. And why did you go? And this, that, and the third. And long story short, I ended up going home that night and clear my mind. And, you know, everybody kind of.
Now, what happened when you went to the police station? What happened when you went to the police station?
They asked me to press charges and I did.
Okay.
But the crazy thing about it is that you have to follow up the next day. So
And
after talking to, oh no, I didn't. When they called me twice on the phone and the lady was like, if you don't call me again, I'm going to send a police officer out to your house to figure out what's going on. So I had to call her back and I had to say, well, we made up and I'm going to try to make it work and I don't want to press charges, which was not the best thing to do because that was ignoring.
Let's talk about that moment because there are a lot of women. This is where they get trapped. In that moment when you had to make that decision to say what you said, oh, we made up, everything's going to be great. Where did that come from? Did he tell you to say that? Or were you just trying to make peace?
Oh, I was trying to make peace. And then he was on parole. So I was saying in my head is I can't get you in trouble. Like I'm supposed to be your wife. I'm supposed to protect you too against what you've been through, knowing that that's not my fault. But in that time, in that moment, and after talking to, you know, my mom and praying and just saying, okay, well, maybe I overreacted and knowing that I didn't. Like now that I look back on it, like I didn't overreact. Like that was not okay. And I should have stuck to my guns. And as time progressed, it kept happening. It got worse. Every event got worse. And it got worse.
Tell us about some of the other times. Tell us about some of those beatings that you got.
I think the next time was when he tried to drown me in a tub. And then he tried to make it seem as if he didn't, and I was carrying on. And that time I did press charges, and he did go to jail because
he tried to drown you in the tub. Like, take me back to that moment. You were taking a bath, and he came in. And what happened?
So the night before, we got into an argument because in his mind, I was always on my phone and always on social media. So he thought I was entertaining other conversations. And he was just very jealous. Like if I didn't give him his time, I had to be doing something else. So he felt as if I wasn't giving him his time and I was entertaining other people and I need to learn how to respect his time and this, that, and the third. So we got in an argument about it and I was like, I'm not going to argue with you about it. And the next morning we got up and he wanted to be on the same thing. So I disregarded him and I was like, well, I'm going to take a bath. You can do whatever. I'm just not going to entertain this conversation. So I went to go run my bath water. I got in the tub. I'm playing my music. I'm journaling and he comes in and he says, oh, you think this is a joke? So you take me as a joke and you think that I don't know what you're doing? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? He was like, I know you entertaining people and, you need to learn how to be a respectful wife. And he came over to me and he said, you think I'm a joke? And I laughed at him because I was like, oh, you're funny. And in that moment when I laughed at him, I have long dreads. He took my hair and he put me under the water. And he said, I will effing kill you if you think this is a game. And in that moment, even though it might have just been 10, 15 seconds, I felt like it was a 2, 3, 5 minutes because I couldn't breathe and I'm trying to get up. I'm trying to wrestle to get myself together. And when I got up and I got out the tub and I was screaming for my kids and my kids came in and they're like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I didn't do anything. Your mom is overreacting again. She's in here trying to make a mockery and make me look like a bad guy. And that was always his cop out to my kids to try to reverse it, to make it seem like I was overreacting. And in that moment when I called the police and they came out, he tried to make it seem like I was crazy. And when I talked to the lady that came and talked to me and asked me what happened, and she said, truthfully, say what happened. And I looked at her and I said, well, I have to tell you what really happened, because he was just making it seem like, oh, we got in a little tussle and that was that. Right. And I was just delusional. So I told her what happened. And when they spoke to the kids, because I was like, you have to speak to my kids. And the thing that saved me was my daughter felt his clothes and felt that it was wet. And that's how she knew that he was lying. And they asked me if I wanted to press charges, and I said yes. But then again, after him not being there for a week and him blowing up my phone all week long, begging to come back, saying that he'll never do it again, and this and the third, I was a fool. I went and bonded him out. Well, not bond him out, but did the paperwork to help bond him out and all that, which was...
I would have signed that paper, Mickey Mouse. I would have like, what's your name, Mickey Mouse? So that would have made it, I'm like, oh, I forgot, or something to make it invalid. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So he's out. So it sounds like over and over repeatedly, you kept getting there and then coming back, taking it back.
Because it's a cycle. It's the honeymoon phase. And I didn't know any of this until I went to that class. When I went to that class, in that moment and reading the cycle that you go through is so true, because they everything is your fault. Nothing is their fault. You're the enemy. You're the reason why they're doing it. You're the reason why all this stuff is happening. How dare you call the cops on me? I thought you loved me. Like all these things they make you feel. And then he would wine and dine, buy me my favorite snacks, or take me out to dinner, and doing all these little things to make it feel like, oh, he won't be like this. It was just a phase. But it happens over and over again. And I'll never forget people telling me that it's never going to get better. But in my head, I'm like, no,
he'll change. You thought you could pray him through it, right?
Oh, girl, I had a prayer closet with a prayer for praying for his salvation, praying for his life to change. Every day I would go in this closet and pray. Every day I would. And
did your kids ever see you get beaten by him?
They would see. My son saw me one time get dragged by him. And for my youngest son, that was a lot for him. And my youngest son was like my protector. My oldest son was like a gentle giant. He didn't like confrontation. So he would say, let's chill. Please cut it out. With my girls, they were like, oh no, this is my mama. Like, what's going on? We got to get you too. So it was chaos. And it was horrible that he saw how close in connection I was to my kids, to be to the point that when CPS got involved, because we had an argument, my kids stepped in, and I accidentally called my brother on FaceTime, and he heard the ruckus, and they called the cops, and they, he punched my son and he punched my daughter. So that's how CPS.
Whoa, wait a minute. He punched. What do you when describe
like punched
that
like? When we were in the room and we were arguing, my kids came in and they were trying to break us apart. And then my daughter was like, leave my mom alone. This is enough. We're tired of it. We're tired of arguing. We're tired of screaming. And he was like, get out my face. And my son got up in his face and he was like, oh, you really want this? And he started swinging. So he swung and he hit my son in the face, and he hit my daughter in her arm, on her arm, as they were trying to defend me. So when I told them to leave, because I had to push them out the room to leave, because they were so on 10, because they were like, enough is enough. Because once you get into this environment, like, your kids get fed up. Enough is enough. They feel like, God, like, cut it out. And they would hear him starting, and hear me saying, listen, I don't want to do this tonight. Please don't do this tonight. So they got to their breaking point too. So when that all came upon, and CPS was involved, and I was still trying to protect him. I was still trying to say, listen.
Did they remove the kids?
They did. They removed the kids when he refused to move. And that was when, in my mind, when my kids were taken, and it was my two youngest, because I have two oldest, but my two youngest, my 17-year-old, my 16-year-old, when they were removed, I just felt like, what man would allow this to happen to you? If they value how much, and he has kids of his own, but what man would put you in that predicament? But he didn't care. He didn't care, because it was still my fault.
Did it get more real for you when you saw your kids being taken out of your home?
Oh,
What
yeah.
point? Yeah, I can imagine that it's like, okay, wait a minute. This is going a little bit too far because now my kids are out of the house. What all did you have to go through before you were able to get your kids back?
When they left, we had to take classes. We had to do, they ordered me to do like therapy. I had to do domestic violence classes. He also had to agree to do like domestic violence. I guess it was classes for himself too as well. And luckily, when I did have my hearing a month later, because they were in foster care for a month, they were able to come back home. But by that time, when I was in the process of leaving that time, we got into another altercation where it was shown that he headbutted me. So that was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. Like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. But that, unfortunately, I hate to say it's crazy. That wasn't the last time that I dealt with him, because it began to be this battle of, I will get your kids taken away, but you have to continue to talk to me. And if you don't continue to talk to me, I'll find out, like, I know where you work at. I know where you're staying at. I will come and kill you. So it came into a battle of, I have to play nice with him until this case closes. But it didn't work out for me, because in the end, when I was staying with his sister and I thought that she understood and it would be okay, it was always a constant fear of walking out her doorstep and being attacked. It was always a constant fear of leaving my job and him popping up, which he did a couple of times. Like, he made it known that I'm not playing with you. And what people don't understand, and the laws seriously need to change, is because your abuser can find you anywhere. And you can call 911, or like, you can call 911, but is you playing this fence of, is 911 going to get to me before he kills me? And that's what it is. Because I had an order of protection, which he did not follow at all or did not care. And I still played that game because I was violating too as well. But I was playing the game because he was threatening me. But when it all blew up and he wanted to make it seem like I was this person leading him on, and he actually contacted CPS and told them that I wanted our marriage to work and I was a horrible person. And the only thing that saved me was the text messages and the voicemails that he sent me that actually said that I will kill you. I will kill you and your kids. Like, I will report you to CPS. That was the only thing. But even in that, CPS still treated me as if I was the problem, because I should have known better. Why didn't I leave? You know better. Why don't you leave? And when I did do the reports and call, it took me 12 times to file a report for him to get a warrant out for his arrest for violating his order of protection. Who has the strength to call the cops 12 times as you're getting, like, my tires have been flattened? He's followed me to work. He's followed me to my extended stay that I moved in to be incognito. I have to sleep at my job. I have to be escorted in and out. Like, who has the time and the mental capacity to do all of that? So
you were put, oh my gosh. So let me understand something then. So at this point, he hadn't actually gone to jail yet.
No.
Not really.
Oh, no. He didn't go to jail until it was, I don't even know. I think he got arrested October 14th or 15th that year. And the only reason why I didn't know is because I attempted to take my life, because at the time I felt like everything was against me. I didn't have my kids. His sister turned my kids against me. I had no one. I felt like I was literally out here by myself. So what else did I have to live for if everybody was against me? So I didn't know he got arrested until I got out of the mental facility that I was sent to. And the only reason why they kept me as long as they did is because they were afraid for my safety too. They were like, well, if we let you out, like, it's no telling that he won't do these things again. Like, he won't stalk you again. He knows where you live. He knows where you're staying at. He knows where you work. So you need a substantial amount of time to get your mental together. So he didn't get, when I got out, I think it was like October 21st, I found out that they served him because I had already filed for divorce and I couldn't find him. And they arrested him and they put a GPS monitor on him. And even after they put a GPS monitor on him, like the next day, he made a mockery of it, posted on Facebook how no hoe can hold him down. Oh yeah, no hoe can hold him down. Took pictures of his ankle monitor, made a mockery of my domestic violence post, even though I never mentioned it was him or mentioned that, you know, he was the one that I was in a domestic violence relationship, tried to say that I lied about everything. And I'm like, seriously?
Now, Rhonda, I want to go back to something because I've talked to a lot of women, a lot of, you know, men too, who have attempted suicide. And it comes a moment, it's almost like you said, you just felt like there were no options. You know, you talk to your mom, she doesn't really understand. Had you at that point ever heard about these domestic violence, you know, counselors, or did that ever cross your mind to try some of that?
No, because they don't give you the resources. Like CPS they want you to get out the situation, but nobody gives you the resources. And you'll call these places. And I remember it took me from April to October to get in a domestic violence workshop class.
Ooh.
So look at all the things that I went through until I got that course to see why I was going through the things I was going through, to understand. And even their counselors are manipulating. I had one counselor told me that I want to be in this relationship.
A counselor actually said that to you?
Yes. CPS is a whole nother beast. And it's sad because you would think that they would work for you, but they work against you. And I had to go to her supervisor and tell her, I don't feel comfortable with this therapist. I don't feel comfortable. He's making me feel like I'm a liar. He's making me feel like it's my fault. And the only reason why I knew it was wrong is because at the time, we had this thing called EAP at work, and you can get your own counselor. And I was like, I got to get another counselor because I can't do another session. Like, it's so traumatizing. Like, I can't do another session.
You reported them though. You reported them though. You reported them. Okay, good.
Yeah. When I did the session with my counselor from the EAP from my job, she was in awe. She was like, no. She was like, you need to, this is horrible. This is traumatizing you. And I'm like, I kind of thought that it was, but I didn't want to be crazy. So I wanted to get a second opinion. But I want
to show our viewers something, Rhonda. And I want you to talk about this. You said to me that this was the day that you almost died. I want everybody to take a look at this. Rhonda sent this into the show. And I really want to put this here. Not too long, but I want people to see this is what domestic violence looks like. It's not just people coming on here to be interviewed and talking about it, but this is what it looks like. Tell us about that day, Rhonda.
That day was Cinco de Mayo. I will never forget Cinco de Mayo as long as I live. I was picking him up from work, and me and my oldest daughter was in the car, and she has a little Shih Tzu, and the Shih Tzu always sits on my lap when I drive. So when I picked him up and she was in the front in my lap and I was driving, he was like, you need to get that dog out of the front seat. Like, we're going to die, this, that, and the third. And I didn't. I was like, she's up here all the time. I drive with her every day. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So I tried to change the subject on something else. And I think it was something like, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? And he was like, I'm not going to entertain any kind of conversation you have to say if you're not going to listen to what I have to say. So he was like, do you feel good about disrespecting me in front of your daughter? And I'm looking like, what are you talking about? We're just talking about a dog. So we went in the house, and he came outside, and I took her outside to use the bathroom, and he came right behind me and took me and jacked me up and said, you think this is a game? He was like, you're going to respect me. He was like, either way it goes, you're going to respect me. You think it's cool. You think it's funny to not follow the rules that your husband makes. And you just want to do what you want to do. And then you want to scream and act like you're the victim to your kids. And my son came out and he was like, chill. He's like, get your hands off my mom and chill. So my daughter was like, you are really blowing it out of proportion. You're being really childish. So he was like, whatever, walked upstairs. I took my daughter to work and I came back. I came back home. I went upstairs. I got myself together, laid on the bed, and he wanted to fight some more. He was like, oh yeah. He was like, since you think it's okay to be disrespectful, he was like, I'm gonna show people. He was like, and you around here telling people that I beat you? He was like, let me show you what I can do. And we started tussling, and we tussled so much until I had him pinned up on the wall because I was like, get off of me, it's enough. And my oldest son came in and was like, y'all, like, chill, like, this is enough. So I was like, okay, cool. He said, oh, I'm leaving. So I thought he was leaving. As he was going, my son left the room and he walked out and came back in. He closed the door. When he closed the door, I was laying on the bed and he came towards me and I was laying back and he came towards me and he pinned me down. And I'm fighting him to get off of me because he's choking me and put me in the headlock. And I'm like, enough is enough. And in that moment, he held me down. And I remember it clear as day is I'm hitting him, swatting him, trying to get him off of me. And in that moment, he takes his head back and he headbutts me as hard as he can. And in that moment, I was in a daze because I was like, did this really just happen? And my son came in and all I remember is sliding down off my bed and there was a mirror that I took off my dresser. And before I could open my eyes, my son was like, your head is swollen. And I was like, my head is swollen. He was like, yeah, and your finger is bleeding. And I was like, what? And he was like, look in the mirror. And I looked in the mirror and I had a goose egg, just how you see on that picture of what he did. And he looked at me and he said, look what you made me do to you. Look what you made me do to you. And he said, now I have to go get some ice to help you. So he went downstairs. And in that moment, I looked at my son and I said, D'Angelo, you gonna be okay? Because I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here now. I need to go get some help. And he said, Mom, do whatever you need to do. He was like, I'll be fine. So I took my phone and I was barefoot. I ran to my car and I drove and I called a sister and I went to her house and we called the cops and they came out. And the crazy thing about it is the same people that came out to do my pictures that time was the lady that did my pictures the last time. And all I could do was break down. And she said, it doesn't get better. She said, it's crazy. But she said, I see this every day. She said, it doesn't get better. And she said, I wouldn't have recognized you if you didn't say something. Because I was like, oh, you look familiar. And she said, you were the lady that called us when he tried to drown you. And I was like, yeah. And that happened a year ago, almost a year ago.
So would you say that you were beaten like every day, Rhonda?
It wasn't every day. It was like cycles. It was sometimes that we would wrestle and we would fight, and his way of making up would be like having sex or you know, it was just a bad mental cycle that we would go through. Like we would have a couple of months where we were really good and then it would explode and he would be nasty or he would talk to me all type of way or he would choke me out so it wasn't where I was being beaten every day. It was definitely more of an emotional, like when we had our physical moments, we had our physical moments, but the emotional abuse and the verbal abuse was horrible. Telling me
Did you think you were going to die that day? Did you think you were going to die?
That day when I had that concussion, yes, because I remember when I went to his sister's house and my adrenaline slowed down and I tried to get up and I passed out. And they were like, you need to go to the hospital. But I was like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I'll be fine. It'll be okay. I'll be all right. But in that moment, yeah. In that moment, I thought
Now, why didn't you want to go to the hospital? You had a head injury.
Stubborn. I work in the medical field. Very, very stubborn. And then I was
Did you take him back
embarrassed.
after that? Did you take him back even after that?
I took him back for, about a week. A week or so, I took him back and I played the game. I knew I never wanted to be back with him.
Right.
But I knew I had to play his game in order to be free, in order to try to get my kids back. Because my plan in my head was once my CPS case was over, I was moving. I was not telling nobody. I wasn't telling his sister. I wasn't telling anybody where I was going to change my number. Me and my kids were going to have a new life out here. Like, that was my plan in my head. But when you're dealing with somebody that's not all there and their mission is to destroy you and to separate you from everything that you love.
Now, let me tell you why you're so blessed. And when you talked about the head injury, it brought back bad memories. My cousin had a head injury. Her brain was swollen.
Oh, wow.
He sneaked a belt around her neck and held her up with the belt around her neck and dropped her. And I think my cousin must have known that she was about to die. So she told her daughter to leave the house, go tell somebody. So the guy told her, give me your phone. You better not go anywhere. I'm going to burn this house up with your mother in it. But the girl went anyway. Her daughter went anyway. Well, by the time she came back, her mom was laying on the floor and she was unconscious. And she ended up in the hospital, and her brain was swollen and she just did not recover.
Wow.
She died. And I had just seen her. I went home to Alabama. I went home November for Thanksgiving, 2020, November 28, 20, whatever that last week is. And just 3 days later, she was dead. You know? And this is so important to me because she probably thought the same thing you did. He'll never kill me. He just gonna talk, child. He ain't gonna do nothing. And she's strong, so she probably thought she could take him. But he sneaked that belt around her neck. And the reason this is so important, women watching this broadcast, you see everybody that comes on this broadcast, they all say the same thing. I should have left. I should have done this. But they also talk about how there are no resources. And I think that is where this domestic violence community has to come together. And we're going to have to fight for the laws to change. We really will. Yeah. Now, Terry, let me ask you a question, because I know you've worked with a lot of people. What do you recognize any of this? Because I know in your intro, we talked about how you had a bankrupt marriage. Now, I know you weren't a domestic violence survivor or anything like that, but do you recognize some of this, that what she's saying? Did you recognize any of this from your marriage?
Not the violence piece, but just continuing on thinking things are going to change. And like Rhonda said, the lady told her it doesn't get better. Like, once whatever the abuse is, emotional, physical, mental, as long as you take it, they'll dish it out, because they think you won't leave. They think you have no recourse. So as long as you accept it, that's what you're going to receive.
That's how it is.
Self-truth is so important.
Yeah. Now, Rhonda, I want to talk about this suicide. What did you try to do to yourself?
I took, it was like a handful of, it was a lot of ibuprofen and melatonin. And I just wanted to sleep. I remember that day, I wanted answers that day. And I called him and I wanted to know why. And I asked him, I said, why do you want to see me go through all this? Why do you want to see me hurt? Why don't you want me to be around my kids? Why do you not want my family to talk to me? Why do you want to isolate me and make me feel like this? And he looked at me and he said, the reason why I'm doing this is because you're a horrible person. He was like, I want everybody to see how horrible you are. I want everybody to see and make you suffer. He was like, you called the police on me. You know I got a record. You know I have things at stake. So I'm going to do whatever I can do to take everything away from you. And in that moment, and the things that he was saying, like, he knew stuff about my kids. He knew stuff that was going on that he shouldn't have known. So
what do you mean by that?
Like
Like
he
what?
knew that my kid, like he knew for instance, my son wasn't passing school. He knew that my brothers weren't talking to me. He knew that my kids weren't really talking to me. And the only reason why he knew those things is because his sister was telling him all those things. And I didn't know that until later on, until I got to really reconnect with my kids.
Right.
And they were telling me, yeah, she tells him, he tells her everything. So I didn't know all this.
Because they're
So
probably afraid also. Yeah. That's
yeah.
probably what
So
it is. Yeah.
in that moment, I was like, what else I got to live for? My kids aren't talking to me. My mom, we're not talking right now. My brothers, they're not talking to me because I refuse to leave and it's my fault. And, you know.
I know anytime somebody gets to that point, before you think you're about to die, you have a conversation with God. What did you say to him? Because I know you had to have a conversation.
Oh, yeah. I said, just take care of my kids because my kids are my world. Like my kids are my lifeline. My kids are my everything because they've been with me through everything. I had my first child when I was 18. So I grew with my kids and my kids are like a strong connection to me. Like everybody that knows me knows that my kids are my world. So I just asked.
What kept you from dying? How did you live through it?
My friend, at the time, I had a friend and he wasn't there, but my cousin reached out to him because she knew that we would hang out every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And she texted him and she was like, I need you to go check on my cousin ASAP because she just texted us to let us know that she can't do it anymore. And I turned out, like, after I sent my group text, I turned off my phone because I didn't want to hear from anybody. Like I was like, already said that this is what it is. Like, this is the end all be all. And I don't need nobody talking me out of it. So he called the cops while he was on the way there. And the hotel manager gave him a key to get in. And by time I was out. Like I was out of it. I didn't know anything. They said he drugged me out the room and the ambulance came and took me and they took me to a near hospital. And I didn't know anything until later on that night because I was just out of it. And they, told him my situation and they just said that it was best for me to go to a mental facility to get help. So
yeah, I'm glad. So you can get some help. Now we're going to come back to you because we're going to find out how you got out of it, but we're going to start with you, Jesse, because I know that, your internet and different things are happening over there, but we want to definitely go ahead and get started with your story. So let's talk about your sister first, because those of you that, if you're just tuning into the broadcast tonight, we're talking to these two beautiful women here, and they are domestic violence survivors. On this show, we've done quite a few shows about domestic violence, but they're both here to tell their story. But Jesse's story is very unique because we're going to talk about her sister who actually died as a result of domestic violence, just like my cousin. So she got to see it and then she became it as well. So talk to us, Jesse, first about Crystal, your sister.
Yeah, my sister Crystal was 6 years older than me. We're Alaska Native. We live in Alaska. Well, she lived here. And she was a mother of 3. I have 6 kids. And back then I had 4 kids before she died. And we both had, our fears of the other, the father of our kids. And we both agreed to take care of each other's kids if, God forbid, either one of us got killed. And back then I didn't know.
Your audio went out.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So eventually she got isolated in Fairbanks, which is about an 8-hour drive from here. Her husband kept her from her family, and she was very secretive. She became withdrawn when I would drive up there to visit with her. She would say it's not a good time, so I knew something was up. And then this was in 2014. She came to town and she surprised my son for his birthday. She looks so beautiful.
she'd gotten the happiness back that she had lost for a long time. She lost a lot of weight and she looked so radiant, and I was so happy to see her. And then she had asked me to give her a ride back to where she was staying in town. She told me that she was getting her life together. She was going to get a driver's license, something that she was denied the right to have. Her husband didn't let her do anything. And then I thought it was odd. She was letting me drive her to some guy's home. And I was like, well, what's up with that? And she's like, don't tell him. I'm seeing someone that I used to have a crush on in high school. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I told my dad, who, I don't know if he's watching right now, but he may have told her significant other, her husband, that is where I had dropped her off. And then she said that she was going to admit to her husband that she had cheated on him. He beat her, and she called and told my dad that she was beaten. And given the mentality that I had growing up, where we would hide things, you know, being abused, and the other person, my kid's dad who had abused me, I was like, well, that's what you get when you cheat. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to leave, and I'm coming to town. So I had waited that night for her to come to town, and she had our family dog she was going to bring as well. And then around 2 a.m, we got a phone call from her husband, and I ran to the door thinking maybe he's out there. He was bringing her home. And then he claimed that she had killed herself. She didn't. I knew she wouldn't. He told the police that she killed herself, and that she had fallen off the sober wagon and she had gone to drinking again. That wasn't typical of her at all.
You knew right away that was a lie, right?
I did, and I called the police, and I was like, is this true? Is she dead? And they said that she was. And I told them they better investigate because it's not a suicide. I know she would never leave her babies like that. And the police went there, and her husband came out with his hands up like he was guilty. And he said that her body was in the garage. The babysitter had heard yelling but didn't bother to check on her. And they turned the music up so loud, and the babysitter left without even checking to see if my sister was alive or not. The police did not do a thorough investigation. They read him his rights and took him for questioning. They didn't do any alcohol tests on him or drug tests, and he got a lawyer, you know, a really good, expensive lawyer because his family is very rich. And Alaska has a horrible track record of, you know, not prosecuting cases where a white man kills a Native woman. And for some reason or another, his confession came out. He confessed that he had shot my sister and altered the crime scene. He put clothes on her after she was dead. And they didn't even bother to charge with tampering with a crime scene. They didn't think to prosecute all the evidence or collect the evidence as they should have. And his lawyer had his confession suppressed because they said that he may have been under the influence of alcohol and prescription drugs, which would have rendered him unable to understand his right to remain silent. And since they didn't collect the evidence that they should have, that was the only evidence they had to charge him with first-degree murder. And they gave him a plea bargain, and he got less than a year and a half in a halfway house, but most of that was pending the trial. And because he got a reduced charge to criminally negligent homicide, the Slayer statute doesn't apply, and 3 months before he killed her, he got a $650,000 life insurance policy on her, and he was allowed to have that. So he walked away, a rich man, less than 18 months after killing her, and CPS gave him the right to have his kids, even though they were home when it happened. And I had fought to get them from the moment that it happened. I tried to get custody of them, and it was a whole huge legal process because he had his sister come up from Texas and take the children, and that I didn't know where they were. And it was just a huge legal battle, which I eventually had to fight in a Supreme Court case, and the Supreme Court ruled that the children should have come to me as Indian children and they belong to the tribe. But the judge that we had stated that it was a change of circumstance because of all the 18 months had gone by, that they have not been in Alaska and were settled with his family in Texas.
I want to show you guys a picture of Crystal with the kids. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So he has the kids pretty much. You fought to get them. At some point, did you get the kids?
No, I didn't.
Never. He still
Never.
has them.
Yes, he does.
And did he do time for killing her?
He did. They gave him time served.
And he got out.
Yes, he did.
And he admitted that he killed her.
Yeah, and they had the confession thrown out. So
I don't. You guys are gonna have to help me understand that. I just. Oh my God, Jesse. So, how are you dealing with your sister's loss right now?
Well, I honor her by being a victim's advocate and trying to get awareness out there on the importance of knowing what the red flags are and knowing that the most dangerous time in the relationship is when you leave. So I'm dedicating my life to trying to save as many women as I can.
Do you have any visits with the children? I mean, are they out of your life too?
I don't have any visits. They live in Texas, and they said that they don't believe I have any right to access them.
Oh, that definitely needs to change. We have to figure out how to, oh my God. Oh, well, I'm really sorry about your sister. I know how you feel. Believe me, I lost my sister recently and it still hurts. So I'm with you there. So that's why we have to just love and hug on each other and, support each other. But let's talk a little bit about you. Let's start with you, because now you were also in the same situation as your sister. And you guys had made that pact that you would, take care of each other's kids. Tell us about yours. When did your abuse start?
As far back as I can remember, being just a little kid, Alaska Native tribes, usually if the parents who have the children are not mature enough to keep them, then the grandparents take them and raise them as their own, which is what happened to me. And I have a twin sister as well. And that's how Crystal became my sister too. Like, she was adopted, but she was my mom's niece. And so, nonetheless, we were sisters.
Right.
But my grandmother, but my biological grandmother, was very abusive and in every way possible. And I mean every way. Like,
talk to me about that. What do you mean every way possible?
Well, she would verbally abuse us and physically abuse us and sexually abuse us. And
your grandmother sexually abused you?
Yes. Yeah. And
how old were you, Jesse? How old were you?
Probably a baby, all the way as far back as I can remember, and so I was probably about 9 when I was old enough to fight back. And
did you tell anybody?
I did. I told my dad, and he would tell me that it didn't happen, that I'm crazy. And my sisters told him the same, and he told us that we would get taken away if we told anyone, and we'd probably never see each other again. And so we weren't allowed friends. We weren't allowed to go to friends' houses. We weren't allowed to have slumber parties with the rest of the kids because for fear that we would talk. And even to this day, it's hard to make friends. I don't know how. And
well, you got one now. You're amongst a lot of friends here with this show. And when you move to Florida, that's the first thing I'm going to do is take you out to dinner. I promise you that. You and the kids. We're going to make a date of that. So, Grandma, tell me, I mean, as a kid, you're young and Did she, because a lot of times when people are abusing you, do they try to explain to you why they're doing it? Because I'm trying to understand how a grandmother abuses. I had another guest of mine that happened to them also. What was she doing? What did she do to you?
Well, she would crawl into my bed at night. I don't know why. And then she would, like, I would freeze because I was so terrified of her, because she would beat us if we even looked at her funny or didn't clean up, like she said, you know, and like she would make food, and if I didn't eat it all, or if I dropped it on the floor, she would make me lick it up off the floor like a dog, and said that I wouldn't get any more until it was all gone. And so she would save the food over and over and over and put it in the fridge, and that would be the only meal I get. Even if it's a week old, I wouldn't get any fresh food until it was all gone, even if it was covered in mold. And she would hit us, and if we got dirty outside, she would strip our clothes off and spray us with a water hose and tell the neighbors to look at these stupid kids. No one helped. And I prayed that someone would come help us and take us away, because I thought it would be better. And nobody ever did. And when I was in kindergarten, I slit my wrists with a toothpick because that was the only weapon I could find. And Crystal, she bandaged up my wrists, and then she jumped off the roof and broke her back because she also tried to commit suicide. And every time we had injuries, we were taught to cover them up and say something else, like it was an accident, we were clumsy kids, or it was sibling rivalry because twins fight. And so whenever we went to school with bruises, fat lips, black eyes, anything like that, she always had some excuse, and we weren't allowed to say the truth. And so that carried on into our, you know, relationships when we became teenagers, to be, you know, conditioned to lie about abuse. And I started dating the scariest guy I could find, thinking he could protect me and no one would ever hurt me again. And he was like a Prince Charming. He was tall, handsome, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was just a dream. And he was so romantic, and you know, for a month, he was just the biggest sweetheart. He would buy me things and tell me that we were going to get married someday, and I would never have to worry about anything. And then
very similar to you, Rhonda. Very similar.
Yeah. Then came money issues, and he told me to get a job. So I started working at Baskin Robbins, even though I didn't need a job because my parents had a home for me, you know, even though it wasn't all that great. But he would take my money, and then I learned that he had a drug problem, and he needed money for rent is what he was telling me, but that wasn't exactly the case. And then I started.
So you gave him all of your money, all of your checks every time you worked. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember reading that in your story.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you provide for yourself if you were giving him all the money?
I lived with my parents. I was just a teenager in high school.
Oh, okay.
So I still lived there. And then like I was 15, and he had a bunch of girls over. He lived with his mother, who had an escort service, and he had offered to sell me. And I thought it was a joke, and I told him no. And he grabbed me by the hair and dragged me to his room and told me not to embarrass him like that again. And then he told me he was sorry for hurting me. And we went out to get pizza with his friends. And then he told them that he was going to teach me a lesson to not disrespect him again. And he raped me in the vehicle with his friends watching. And then I went to school the next day and talked to a classmate about it that I was kind of close to. And then the next day I got really sick with mono, and I stayed home from school with a fever. And then the police showed up, and they wanted to see me, and they told my parents what they were told by my friend, that I was raped. And my mother called me a whore. And I had to recant what had happened because my boyfriend at the time told me that he wouldn't let anyone put him or his mother in jail and let them live to tell. And so
Oh, wow. Looks like we lost her there for a second. Wow. What do you think so far, Terry?
back.
I thought she was coming back.
Yeah, there
Sorry
she
about
is.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, you can carry on. So your mom called you, yeah, out of your name. She called you that, and
She called. Yeah, and then I told the police that it was consensual, just to not get him in trouble so that I wouldn't get in trouble with him. And I told them that, you know, I was 15, but I was almost 16, so I was almost the age of consent because they were going to arrest him for relationships with a minor because he was an adult. And I begged them to not arrest him and to just give him leniency, and they dropped it. And then eventually his mother had assaulted me. She had strangled me on his bed when I didn't give them any more money. And
his
I tried to
mother,
escape.
his
and
mother
she threw me down
assaulted
the
you.
stairs.
His mother assaulted you.
Yes.
Wow.
Mhm. Yes, she did. And I tried to escape, and he was yelling at her to not hurt me. And she threw me down the stairs. And then he chased after me and got me in the car. And she chased us both and kept ramming the car with her car. And then he told me that I wasn't allowed to call the police, and he didn't want me to go home because he thought I would call the police. So he held me hostage in his room all night with no phone. And he told my parents that I had fallen asleep doing homework, and so that they wouldn't question where I was.
Right.
And he brought me to school the next day, and I was still wearing the same clothing that I had. And I walked past the nurse's office, and she's like, "Hey, Jesse, where did that blood come from?" I was all scuffed up, and I told her it was none of her business. And she told me if I didn't tell her, she would have to assume it was my parents, and she'd be calling the police and Child Protective Services. She did call them, and then I told her the truth, and I thought she would keep it to herself. I asked her to, and I told her who had done it, and I was like, it wasn't my parent, it was my boyfriend's mom, and you know, they're both very dangerous people. And so they were both arrested for assault on a minor. And then the prosecution wanted me to testify, and I told them that I was fearful that I would be killed if I testified because he told me he would kill me if I did. And they said no testimony, no case, and they threw it out.
Oh.
And so there was.
So I'm seeing a pattern.
He's sorry.
I'm seeing a pattern between both of your stories. Like you made that step, both of you made that step to do the right thing, but then something got in the way and they got away with it. And I understand. I definitely understand why. I really do, because there's no system that protects women that are being abused. I can see that from just listening to all these stories. So what happened next, Jesse?
Well, he told me he was sorry. He'd buy me flowers and tell me he loves me, and everything would be good for a day or two before I somehow made him angry. I would cook his food wrong. Like, I wouldn't make his spaghetti like his mom would. And so I got hit for that. He would like put little fingertip bruises on me just to make my face ugly so that nobody would want to look at me. I used to be this cute little 80-pound, cheerleader type girl in high school, and he would push his fingers into my face and leave marks on me. And he said that no one had the right to look at me. And if we went out somewhere and I happened to look in the direction where another man happened to be standing, he would drag me outside and beat me in the alley.
Oh,
And eventually I got pregnant in an incident where he was high and beating me. And the only thing I could do to make him ever stop hitting me was just to freeze and let happen whatever happens, because that was the only way to make him stop, was just to not fight back and just lay still. And
you mean during sex,
so
while
I
you're
told
having
him I was
sex?
pregnant, and then
Yeah. So you mean during
and being
sex, you would
beaten.
just lay there. You're
I
being
would,
beaten while you're having sex.
yeah, he would beat me, and then I would just freeze, and then he would do whatever he wanted, because if I fought back or tried to escape, I would get beaten
Right.
worse.
Right.
And I eventually told my mom that he was hitting me, and she told me that that's what men do, and they'll grow out of it.
What do you think
And
about that, Rhonda? I see you shaking your head.
anyway, when I was
It's just
yeah.
when you can't really fault your parents for the, I mean, you can to a certain extent, but if they don't get help for the relationships they've been in, like, we normalize it. We think it's okay. And like my mom always would say, prayer, just pray, pray. Don't be confrontational. Just pray about it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, like your mom saying that, and my mom and her advice, like, that's the best that they could do, because
That's
that's
all they
how,
know.
that's
That's
all
all they
they
know.
know.
Right. Right.
So, and it's just, it sucks because we're in this situation, and that's true. It stems from your childhood.
Right. So what happened next then, Jesse?
Yeah. Well, I was pregnant with my first daughter, and I told him about it. And him and his mother both said that that was impossible, that he'd never touched me, and that I was still a virgin, and that if I happened to actually be pregnant, there would be no baby to pay child support for. So I shouldn't dare try to make him take responsibility for it.
What did she mean by that?
Eventually, he was going to kill my baby. And he tried to take me to an abortion clinic when I was 8 months pregnant. And I told him I wouldn't go in there. And he told me that he would get that baby out one way or another, and she wouldn't be around anymore. So I was fearful for myself and my baby, because no matter how she came, I love her.
Right.
And I had broken up with him at that point. And he told me that if I left, that something bad would happen to me. I was followed and I was raped by someone else. And I didn't say anything because my mom always told me to don't come home crying. And somehow he happened to know exactly what happened the next morning. He's like, I told you not to leave me. Now look what happened to you.
So you think that he sent somebody?
I tried to ignore what had happened.
So you think that he sent someone to rape you?
Yes, I do. He always told me that he knew where I would be every moment, every day, and that there wasn't a thing I could do that he wouldn't know about, and that I would be only safe with him. But I wasn't safe, and I knew that. And eventually I went on a date, a casual date, not like a romantic date, with someone that I had met and I didn't know had known him. And he told me that he was sent with regards from my ex. And he showed me a coat hanger. And I was like, what is that for? He said, he told me to cut this baby from your womb with this coat hanger.
Oh.
And he told me not to fear him because he wasn't going to hurt a baby. But he was just the messenger.
Wait a minute. So so he sent someone with a coat hanger to get the baby out of you, but the guy couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Oh. Now you're 8 months pregnant.
Phone calls from people.
But you're 8 months pregnant, Jesse. So you're like all the way out there, and they were trying to get the baby even at that late in the. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so what eventually happened? What eventually happened, dear?
Well, eventually my baby was born and we had gotten back together because he said that he wanted to be there for the baby, even though he denied paternity 100%. And eventually she was probably 3 months old. And he kept beating me in front of her. And we went to one of her infant checkups at the hospital. And the doctor had saw the bruises on me and asked her dad to go out to the lobby to fill out a checkup form that talks about the baby, or some random paper that he told him to go out there and fill out. And then he asked me if he had done that to me. And I said he did. And he told me that that was called domestic violence. That was the first time I'd ever heard that in my life. And he told me that if he did it in front of a baby, or a child, that's another crime called family violence, because if a child is present, that's, another crime in itself. And I felt empowered with that knowledge. And when we got home, he tried to hit me again. I told him, "You can't hit me anymore." And he said, "Who told you that?" And I said, "Well, I know that it's against the law. It's domestic violence and family violence for you to do that in front of a child. You can't do that anymore."
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. But that made him more angry, and he started hitting me even more and told me that no one was going to tell him what to do. He dragged me across the room, picked me up by my throat, and slammed me so hard into the wall, it ripped the back of my scalp off my head, and it got stuck to the wall.
What?
And then he dropped me on the floor and punched me in the chest.
Oh.
It separated my whole sternum from my chest, and I couldn't breathe. And then he went into the kitchen and grabbed a knife, and I thought he was going to stab me with it, but he held it against his wrist and said that he was going to kill himself if I left him. I told him to do it. Just do it and leave me alone. And this whole time my baby was sitting there screaming, and all I could do was look at her and wish she had better. He told me he was going to take my baby and I wouldn't see her again. And I told him that since he denied paternity, that he'd be kidnapping. He, at that point, stole my car and took off, and my parents were out of town. And I called my mom and I told her that I was so hurt I couldn't get up. And she gave me the number to a neighbor who lived next door, and that lady came running over and grabbed the baby and brought her to her house and said she'd be back to help me up. And she brought me back to her house, and I was so scared that he'd come back and kill us. And she was an angel keeping guard. And then the police came and took the report, and he was arrested finally.
He was finally arrested.
But given that was his first since it was his first official offense, he got no jail time and a suspended imposition of sentence as a plea bargain.
But he tried to kill you.
He did.
Oh my God.
And then he has made my life living hell.
So. How so? How so?
He's used custody as a way to torment me for the past almost 17 years. So he's used my daughter against me. He used visitation as a point to harass me and call me names. He would, when he got his visitation, he would tell my then baby child, who was just learning words, to say the B word instead of mama. So when she'd come home, that's what she would call me.
What?
I would tell the court, and he would say it's my word against his, and I have no proof. And so he's totally hurt my child just to hurt me. And she still struggles to this day with issues stemming from that. And I
How
was
old
not
is
the
she
last
now?
woman he'd ever assault. And my daughter is about to be 17.
Oh, wow. You look so young. You look so young. Like, I'm thinking, what? You have a daughter 17 years old? I can't wait to meet her. Wow. Woo.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Girl, I tell you, I haven't been breathing since you've been talking. It's like so much. And so he finally got arrested, and that was the end, right? That was the end.
Almost.
Oh, there's more.
That was almost the end. Yeah, he was ordered to do anger management and a batterers intervention program, and he got kicked out of every program in town. And so eventually that charge stuck, but he still didn't get any jail time because there was no contingencies on that. And then a few years later, I had 2 more children after that, not by him. And I had an abusive marriage to my first husband, who I thought could never harm a fly because he was much smaller than me, and I'm only 5'2". So I thought there was no danger there, but that was another abusive relationship, which.
So you went from one abusive.
I had finally learned.
So you went from one abusive relationship to another one.
I did, because I thought he would be the total opposite of this really huge football playing backliner.
Right. Yeah.
He was almost twice my age with 3 kids of his own, and that
he was an older man.
Very well.
He was an older man.
Yes.
And shorter. He was older and shorter, and he still abused you. Oh, see, we need to step on him. I'm just saying, Rhonda, we could step on him. Oh my God. So what did he do, dear? I mean, like.
Yeah, eventually. Well, he would come home drunk, and when I met him, he was homeless with his 3 kids, and I felt really sorry for them. And he asked me to babysit his kids because we were coworkers, and eventually those kids grew on me, and I was like, oh, these kids are so cute and sweet. And then he was like, yeah, we live in our truck. And I was like, oh my God, I can't have you living in a car with children. And so I got a place away from my parents, and we got an apartment, and we got married right away. And the night we got married, his kid's mother showed up, and she was very young. I was young myself. And I was like, well, how old are you? And she told me, I'm like, and I was counting how old the kids are. I'm like, that means you were 12 when you had your first child. And she's like, yeah. And then I was still 12.
So he was a pedophile.
The second one. I was like, oh my God. He was. And I told him that. I was like, this marriage was a mistake. You're a pedophile. And he beat me while I was 9 months pregnant. And I didn't report it at all because I was fearful that my first child's dad would use it against me. And I went to hide at my sister's house, and he followed me there and told me he was sorry, he loved me. And then he got me in his car, and he was telling me he just wanted to talk. And then he started driving, and I was like, no, you can't take me with you. I don't want to go with you. Let me out. And he let me out of the car, and then he hit me with the truck.
While you're pregnant.
I had internal
While
bleeding,
you're pregnant?
Yes. And my son was born disabled, and he couldn't walk until he was 2 because of the damage that was done to him. So, but he's a trooper. He's so strong now, and he's a little football player, but he's very petite. But he's so handsome, and he's been through a lot, and he's so strong. And the doctor said he would never walk, and when he was almost 3 years old, he took his first steps. He proved them wrong, and so he's my miracle child.
This is so much.
And then after that,
my God.
I got divorced immediately, and then I had another child with someone who didn't stick around. He wasn't violent or anything, but he had left. And when I was pregnant with my third child there, my firstborn's dad came around. He's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that he just left you pregnant like that. Let me help you. I've changed over the years. Please, please forgive me and know that I've grown and I would never hurt you again." And I wanted so badly to believe him because I loved him. He was my first love. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and he said that he had learned from all of his batterers intervention programs to not hurt, but he didn't hit me that time around, but he mentally abused me, and he had tried to convince me to recant my statement from when he was arrested, because he said he couldn't get a job and his life was spiraling out of control because he had that one criminal charge on his record. And he's like, "If you could just fix that for me, our lives would be great." And I was like, "I'm not ever gonna lie in court. And what you did is what you did. You're accountable for your own actions." And he's like, "Well, then I'll see you in court and I'm gonna make your life hell." And he tried to take my daughter so many times. And eventually, after over 200 custody motions filed, the judge gave him 50-50 custody of my daughter. And in that time he had her, I told him that was the most dangerous thing that could ever happen. My daughter was sexually abused in his home. She still won't say who did it, but she was. And she didn't go to school. After she went to the school, and she couldn't sit. She was in 5th grade. She couldn't sit. She said it hurt to sit down. I knew what he'd done to her. To hurt her and me. And then he kidnapped her from daycare so that I couldn't take her to the hospital. And I filed a police report, and they went and asked the judge if they can arrest him. And the judge said that would be more traumatic to our child to take her with the police from her dad than to just wait until we resolve it in court.
But he was raping her.
So,
Rhonda.
And
oh my God.
He won't say that he did, but she had said that she was abused. And I sent OCS over there to check on her, the Child Protective Services, and they found his vehicle shot up. And she answered the door and said Daddy was sleeping. He was passed out on heroin and meth.
Oh, God.
So they took her and gave her back to me, thank God. And eventually he was arrested for strangling his girlfriend in front of his kids. And then he was arrested for federal drug and gun trafficking. And he's been gone ever since, thank God.
Thank God.
So I tried to protect my daughter as best I could, but the courts failed us.
Rhonda, how many times do we hear these kinds of stories with the courts, the police? No wonder people don't want to call the cops. Yeah. No wonder they have to try to handle it on themselves. I am so disappointed in this system. It's bad enough that you have to fight these men, but you have to fight the system.
Yep. And it's ridiculous because there's proof in the pudding that you have all these things going on, but nothing happens. And it's like, why isn't anything happening? You can see it, like the pictures, everything. You can see all that stuff. But why isn't somebody doing anything about it? Why are we not protected? Why are they not why aren't the consequences taken more seriously? It's like you're in this game to fight for your life before they do something about it.
So now that we're at the end of both of you guys' stories, tell me, I'm going to start with you, Rhonda. How is it that you're still alive and that you didn't, get caught up and end up dead in this situation? How are you still alive?
The only reason why I'm still alive, and to be honest with you, is from the support that I had My 4 best friends that I love very dearly supported me through everything. They never judged. They always was there to offer advice. I was able to express myself. I was able to do multiple things. But, you know, my mom, she came around. She was very supportive. She understood. Even when I tried to commit suicide, nobody made it feel like it was all my fault. And for once in my going through that, I believed it. I did. So my fight was to get my kids back. Once God gave me a second chance to be here, it was like, you got to fight, and you got to fight hard as hell to get your kids back. If you want to be an example, or you want to, you know, be a testimony to others, you have to put in the work. And that's what I did. Every day I put in the work. And just like Jesse was saying, the most terrifying part of it is when you decide to leave. When you decide to leave, they crank it up a notch and they don't care. And that's the scariest moment of your life. But if you
do you announce to them that you're gonna leave though? Maybe we shouldn't tell them I'm gonna leave.
I feel like they know. They know.
They can sense it.
They find out. Because they're so controlling. How wouldn't they find out? My ex used to go through my phone religiously because I didn't have anything to hide. So he would see the messages. He would see the conversations. I couldn't go through his phone, but he knew my every move. So they always have to be one step ahead of you. They always have to be one step ahead of you. But I fought and I said, God, if you get me out of this situation and I get my kids back and I can be able to start over new, I will dedicate my life to trying to save others. And Jesse, I am so proud of you because it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot to do that. And I feel like we have to come together and we have to call out these narcissistic men that feel like they can control us because that's what they are. I didn't know what narcissistic was until I got into the response relationship. I didn't know the characteristics. I didn't know the behaviors. And I was like, oh my God, I married one. Oh my God, I was dating one in the past and I just didn't know it. So, I mean, we have to be more vocal about it because for so long it was keep your mouth closed. Don't say anything. If you talk in your business or you exploit. No, exploit them. You give them the power when you are quiet. When you quiet, you give them the power. But when you speak, you take away their strength. And by us speaking, telling our story, we're taking away their strength. We're exposing who they are. Because they make it look like they have everything going for themselves and they are the best person ever. My ex to this day makes it seem like he is the best man in the world. But no, he's a monster. And that's who they are. They're monsters. So, I mean, I commend us so much for
too
about it.
Now, Jesse, I want to go back because I'm really bothered by what your grandmother and what she did to you guys as kids. Did you guys ever did she ever get in trouble for that?
She didn't. She died in 2008. She died. So she never ever got in trouble.
So she took that one to her grave. Wow.
She did.
So let me ask you guys. So tell me before we get out of here, I want you guys to tell me, Rhonda, how did you get out? We didn't get to that part in your story. How did you get out? What was the last time? And you said, listen, you know what? That's it. I'm done. What was that moment for you?
When I got out was when it was my birthday time, and I was staying with a sister. I went out for drinks with my coworkers, and he wanted to hang with me. He wanted to bring me gifts and all these other things. And I was still communicating with him and this, that, and the third. And when I didn't spend my birthday with him, that's when he cranked it up a notch and came to his sister's house and tried to fight me and my son. And through that whole time, like, his sister wasn't supposed to have contact with him and he wasn't supposed to be around us or the kids, but she still allowed him to. So she kicked me out and I didn't have nowhere to go. I slept in my car the following night. And he texted me, he called me, he begged me, he didn't want me to stay on the streets, just come stay with him for a week until I got things together. And I did. And I was in the process of getting another job. And that was my out to get completely out. And I was going for an interview. I was going for a drug test and to get all my other stuff done. And he thought I was with another man. So he went off and he blew up my phone. He did everything he could to call me out my name. So I came back to the hotel and I was like, if I can beat him to the hotel and I can get my stuff out of the hotel that we were staying at together, then I would be fine. I'll be good. I'll be great. Unfortunately, he was there. So we ended up fighting. And that was the last fight that we had, because I remember coming in and his youngest sister that lived in Charleston was on the phone. And he told his sister, he said, she made a mockery of me. I bought her all these things for her birthday. I'm trying to save our marriage, but she wants to be a hoe out here in the streets. I'm going to show her. And she said, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, just let her go. Leave it alone. And he hung up the phone on her. And when he hung up the phone on her and I was looking at him, he said, give me your phone. And I was like, no, I'm not giving you my phone. My phone is my phone. I'm not giving it to you. So I wouldn't give it to him. He fought me for my phone. He took it. And he threw my phone so I wouldn't be able to get it. And he looked at me and he said, either you're going to leave here in a body bag or we're going to jail. And in that moment, I was like, I have to fight for my life. So we fought, which seemed like was forever. And I fought for my life. I did. And we fought into the point that the hotel manager came and knocked on the door. And when he came and knocked on the door, he said, is everything okay? Because we got a call that y'all have been fighting. We don't know what's going on. And he told him, he said, oh, no, we're good. We're fine. And he looked at me and he said, ma'am. And I said, sir, we're not okay. And I'm not okay. And I need to leave. And that's when my ex looked at me and the hotel manager didn't say anything else and he walked off. And I think in that moment, my ex knew that he was calling the cops. So that's when I started to gather my stuff and get all my stuff out of this hotel and I left. And when I left and I drove around, I didn't have any money. I probably had like $2 in my account. And I found a extended stay. And at that time, he had already called CPS, told them everything, that I was staying with him, that I never had no plans to leave, and they don't never need to give my kids back. And
oh my gosh.
And I really knew it was over then, because I was like, you were just the same person that told me 24 hours ago that you didn't want me to like be out here in the streets. You wanted to help me. But then when I wasn't available to you and I didn't do what you wanted me to do, then I was the bad guy again. And then you're accusing me again. So after that whole situation and the next day after I got my hotel, I remember waking up that morning and I had so many missed calls from so many numbers. And I didn't know, because I'm new here in Texas. I don't know anybody that lives in Texas. And I blocked him. And I had voice messages and I was going through my voice message and I came upon a voice message he left me and he said, you feel good as a married woman sleeping around in another man's bed? He said, let me tell you something. He said, I've been up all night and I haven't slept. He said, but when I find you, I'm going to kill you and him. And it was something in the way that he said it that I knew he wasn't joking. And I knew I could never come back because this man was going to kill me. And I called the cops and at that point I was like, I can't play this game no more. I can't give him the benefit of that. I can't try to hold on to the memory of him being this good guy that he was, because it's not there anymore. He's never going to be this good guy again. So stop looking for that man that you married a year ago.
Right.
And that's when I left. I cut out contacts. I cut out ties. I just constantly said, I have to stick to my gun. I have to call the cops. It's exhausting. And I would cry and call my friends and say, I'm tired of calling. I'm tired of calling. But they was like, you have to do it. If you want something to happen, you have to do it. Mm-hmm. And every single time, as hard as it felt, I called and I reported, and exhausting as it was, I did. So, I mean, that was one of the reasons why I had, because I knew he was, the next time we got together, I knew I was going to die.
Oh my gosh. So what about you, Jesse? When was that moment for you that you were like, that's it, I'm done?
Well, it was when he asked me to, lie in court to get his previous charge taken away. I was like, no, he needs to be responsible for himself. And I had gone to counseling to get over my PTSD, and they're like, well, why did you stay in these crappy relationships? And I was like, well, honestly, I can't do better. I'm trash. I've never been treated right. I'm worthless. And they're like, well, who told you that? I'm like, well, he did. And that's the way I was taught growing up, that I wasn't worth anything. And they're all, why do you let people label you? Label yourself. You are what you believe you are, and you are capable of doing things. You are capable of getting a good job and getting your own place and taking care of yourself and your kids all on your own without him. You don't need him. And I was like, that's the first time anybody ever told me that. So I got a job and I got daycare through daycare assistance, and then I saved up money and I bought our own house, and now we're on our second house, but I'm planning to sell that and come to Florida. So
Yay!
that's that.
Well, I can't wait. So I think I read in your story somewhere where he actually gave you a divorce documents on your birthday. Did I read that?
Oh, that was my most recent husband. This is the father of my last two, who adopted my firstborn, because after my first ex went to federal prison and got out, I had met my current husband about 5 years ago, and we've been married, and my birthday was about a week ago, and he was just being irrational, and he'd been violent in the past, and he'd already completed his domestic violence batterers program and counseling to, overcome any presumptions. And I told him when he was getting all, I don't want to say too much because we've got the case coming up, but he was being verbally abusive, and so was his mother. I told them both to get out, and I was like, and take your son with you, I'm done. And he's like, well, happy birthday, here's your divorce. And I was like, I guess my wish just came true, because I wished we were leaving to Florida.
So for your birthday, you got a divorce. That's probably the best thing, the best gift. But I want you to, we got to write something here. We got to right a wrong that's been done to you. You are very special. You know that. You are somebody. You know that, right? They lied to you. Yeah, they all lied to you. And in it there was, for you to come through all of that, you've seen nothing but hate and abuse your entire life. How do you sit there with a straight face and be able to care so much for other people with all the hell you've been through?
I don't know. I think it's just my gift that God has given me, that I've been through all this so I can help others get through what they're going through. And I have 6 beautiful babies that I want to give them the world, and I want them to know that they don't ever have to put up with any abuse, and that I will protect them to my last breath if I have to. I will never let harm come to them. And even when they're adults, if I see them in an abusive relationship, I'm going to make sure that comes to an end before they ever get hurt, as long as I can help it. So,
did your daughter get counseling for what she went through?
Yeah, she still is. She still struggles every day.
Well, there's places here when you come to Florida. I mean, there are places here that can help you guys, the entire family. I mean, whatever we can do on the show, when you come to Florida, let's see if we can find some people because there are a lot of places where you can go for family therapy. And I think that would be a good start. You're in a new place. You already know want somebody here. And, we can just kind of work together to get you guys where you need to be so you can start. And where better to start over than in Florida? Like, it doesn't get better than that. I mean, the weather is perfect here. So I am excited for you. Now, before we get out of here, guys, we have people that are watching the broadcast who may be going through something very similar. This has been, ladies, let me tell you, you guys got me so messed up. I'm just sitting here like I am so proud of both of you, you know, and I'm just sitting here like, wow. And we complain about a little ticket or something, or a little this, you know, we complain about stuff, and these women went through hell and they're here still caring about other people. That is beautiful to me. But what I want you guys to do is look in your camera, and I want you to talk to the people that are sitting there knowing that they're suffering in silence. And I want you to speak to them, Rhonda and Jesse, about what they need to do so they can make a plan to get out.
What I would say to you is that you're enough. You matter. You're an amazing person. No matter what your abuser might have you at this point in time, you deserve better than what you are getting. There are so many resources that can help you. I think that's one of the things that is not told to you, but you can start a whole new life over. There's in every state, as far as I know, they do have crime victims compensation that can help you start, like move you from another location to another state, wherever you would like to start over fresh. So you do have the ability. You just need to reach out and voice it and say it. Surround yourself with people that will not judge you. That's one of the biggest things. And if there is a domestic violence workshop, or there is a domestic violence number, call and express how you feel. Just tell them how you feel. It's okay to speak about it. And if you want to reach out to either one of us, you can too. Because as a domestic violence victim, you feel like you have no outlet. No one understands. But we do understand. We get it. And we would never judge you for how you feel. And if you feel like you need to go back or whatever, it's to encourage you to build yourself up to know that you can leave and you have options and there is a better life after that. So please just take the time to use the resources, reach out to someone, anyone. You would be surprised. When I spoke about my domestic violence relationship, it's been so many women that have inboxed me and reached out and said how I was inspiration to them to keep going and doing what they had to do and how they saw strength in me. So you can do this. You got this, and we're here for you, and we love you. And you know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So.
Amen. What would you like to say to them, Jesse?
I would say similar to what Rhonda had said, and make sure you have a safety plan. Please don't leave and, you know, risk yourself getting killed or hurt. You know, use code words like, for example, like if you call a friend and ask them how their dog is and that friend doesn't have a dog, your perpetrator may not even know that. And that will be the, you know, inform your friend whatever the sentence is or word is, your safety word, and let them know that that's the time that you need help, you need backup, and they need to bring police and witnesses to come help you. You know, reach out to a local advocate for more help. And yeah. And if you can have a backup cell phone, get one if you can, and hide it, because they may take your phone to prevent you from getting help. But yes, please reach out to your advocates if you can.
Wow, you guys have both been just such a blessing. I tell you, I am impressed with both of you. You're very strong, you're very beautiful women. And I want to talk a little bit about this before we get out of here. This is Rhonda's book. She is an author. Looking Past My Smile, Which Lies My Pain. Yes, I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. And you see there, her books are only $20. Okay, so I want everybody that's watching this broadcast, if you have not purchased this book, please go out and get this book. I can't wait to get mine. I'm so proud of you, Rhonda. How was that you decided to write a book? Because that's usually what comes next. That's your therapy, right?
That was definitely the hardest thing I had to do, because I had to relive all those moments, even though I have moved on and my life is in such a better place. So I had to relive all of that. I had to you know, pour out all these emotions. But it was the best therapeutic thing I could do. It was also a part of my healing too as well. And I feel like, you know, your pain, you can turn your adversity into your purpose, or your pain into your purpose. So, you know, telling your story can definitely help others. And that's what I wanted to do. And it was crazy because one of my best friends said that she saw me writing the book, because when I was going through it, it felt like I was in a Lifetime movie. Jessie, I like listening to your story. I felt like we could do a Lifetime movie, because
I definitely think you could do a
believe it.
Lifetime.
You cannot believe it. So, I mean, and it's somebody out there that has been in that same situation. So, you know, me being able to actually make this a goal and make it happen means so much to me, because I want to inspire so many women to leave and to let them know that I'm just like you. I was just that woman that thought that it couldn't happen to me, and look what happened, and look how I was able to regain everything that I lost. So, you know, I'm just thankful and I'm blessed that I could be able to be that testimony for others. And Jessie, you are definitely a testimony for others,
You
because
are, girl.
all of your life, everybody tried to kill that kind, loving spirit within you, but it never died.
Never
and one thing I
died.
love about your story is that you have such a forgiving heart. Through all the things that you've been through, you have such a forgiving heart. Because you could have went through this world full of anger and hate and destruction, but you chose to love.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that
you
is
did.
like one of the strongest things, girl. Like I'm inspired by you, because I'm like,
Me too.
I wanted to kill a couple of people in your story. I'm sorry, but I did.
I know. I'm starting with your grandmama. For real.
But
she was the one I wanted.
Yes, but you fought through it all, and you still operate in love, and to be an advocate. Like, I admire that, because that's something that I definitely want to do. So please keep doing what you're doing, because you are a blessing for others. Please keep flourishing. Please keep pouring into females, because they need it. They definitely need it, and especially from everything that you've been through. So I just want you to know that you're an inspiration to me. Definitely an inspiration to me tonight.
You are. I want to show some photos here. I want to show some photos because I know I showed some of Rhonda's, but this is a photo of Jessie and some of her abuse that she went through. I see your face was swollen there, and just these are the scars. But you know what? They may have put that on you, but they didn't do anything to your heart. I love it. I love it. And this is a photo, Jessie, with her kids, all the kids. Isn't that beautiful?
You are gorgeous, girl.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And then last but not least, here's a photo of you and your sister.
Oh.
And we just bless your memory, Crystal. And I just pray for your kids. I pray that they will be able to be erased with memory of all the bad things. And I speak life over these babies, your children, everyone that was involved in this story. Your sister would be so proud of you, Jessie, that you have taken this and now you want to help somebody else and keep them from. And like I told you, this show is dedicated to my cousin, Tasha, as well as Crystal, because, you know, they lost their fight in this, but we can try to keep other people from losing theirs. Right? You guys want to say anything else before we get out of here? Now, Jessie, I hope you're thinking about a book, because I can tell you your book will definitely turn right into a movie. You should think about it. You should definitely think about it. And you really should. We should really talk serious. Well, you're coming to Florida, so you're not going to think about it. You're going to get her done, baby.
Yeah. That's right.
You're going to get her done. I'm going to see to it. I will help you. Yeah, we're going to get that done, because that's a definite.
Thank you.
And, you know, I'm looking forward to the day that we can all come together and do something fun. I mean, Orlando would be a good spot. Rhonda, I would love for you to come to Orlando, and maybe we can go to Universal and just don't talk about anything serious. Just have fun.
Yeah.
You know, we'll hire somebody to kind of watch the kids at the hotel. See, I'm already planning. I'm actually getting ready to do something here in Orlando. You guys are more than welcome to come. But it's going to be July 23rd through the 25th. I'm actually celebrating my birthday because my birthday is next Friday. So I'm not going to do it now because I need time. But in July, I'm definitely going to probably rent a suite, and just whoever wants to come, just come. And we just spend the weekend and go to the pool. I probably won't get in it because, these things don't recover from that. Okay. You know what I'm saying, Rhonda? Not these.
I see.
Not these, baby. I'm going to have to go to the Top Chef. But, okay. But anyway, I just want us to let our hair down literally and just enjoy being women. Yes. So when I post that, I want you guys, I don't want you to let anything hold you back. I don't want money to hold you back. I want you to find a way to get here. We'll put our coins together, whatever we have to do. But I want it to happen because you guys mean a lot. Once you come on this show, you're family now. You know that, right? Because you're family now. Because we are in this together, guys. Because I kind of got wrapped into this domestic violence community, but I love it because you guys are the people. It's like if you really want to be around some strong women, this is the community. Because you guys are alive to tell your story. And I'm glad that you chose to tell it here on the Ella Johnson Show. Now, if you guys don't have anything else, we're going to get out of here. Nothing else?
Thank you so much, Ella. Thank you so much for the opportunity in the space. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Tell everybody where they can find your books, dear.
You can find my book on it's on my author site. It's located on Facebook. It's going to be published on Amazon too as well. You can definitely find me, Rhonda Mitchell, on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram at Virgo Girl for Your Life. And all of my links are there for you to purchase. So I really appreciate it.
Now, is that you on the book?
No, that's not me. I'm on the back of the book.
Okay. It kind of looks like you. I love it. I love your cover. It's very bright. Very bright. It makes me feel light. So I love that. Was a very good choice of colors.
Thank you.
Very good job. All right, guys. Well, if nothing else, we are going to say goodnight. I want to thank everybody that tuned in to the broadcast tonight. I really, really, truly hope that you guys will all take this broadcast and share it on your page. Go to YouTube and share it because there are people that and let me tell you, there are people that are just right up under your nose that could be suffering in silence and you have no idea. So don't take for granted that just because everybody looks happy that they really are. Okay. There could be some people really suffering. So I want you guys to take this broadcast and share it so they can be a blessing to them. But if nothing else, I'll see you guys. I will not be on tomorrow night. That's why we had such a long show tonight. This was like 2 shows in one because I will be traveling to Alabama. I'm going to Unity Day in Montgomery. One of my guests was here on the broadcast, and I believe in supporting the people that support this show. So she's having a Unity Day, and I will be speaking at that in Montgomery on Friday. You guys come on out. We're going to have drinks and fun and entertainment and all kinds of stuff over there. You know, I'm with that. So I'm driving all the way to Alabama for that, but it's like going back home anyway. So if you're going to be there and you're in the area, I'd love to see you there. But if nothing else, guys, I'll see you next week right here on the Ella Johnson Show. So you guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. Good night. Thank you so much for tuning into tonight's broadcast. I pray that if you or someone you know is suffering from domestic violence, that you won't hesitate to call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. That number is at the bottom of the screen right now, 1-800-799-SAFE. 1-800-799-SAFE. Please call today so that you can make a plan to get out before it's too late. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show.